If the trail is clean, the buyer moves on. If the trail is sloppy, they start asking another question. What else am I missing here? And when that happens, the temperature changes. I've been in deals where clean financials did more selling than any pitch I could have ever made. The numbers created the confidence. And I've been in deals where messy books cost the seller real money. Not because the business was bad, but because the buyer got nervous. Clean books send a clear message to the buyer. Hey everybody, welcome to the Going Beyond the Deal podcast. I'm your host, J. Michael Fischer Jr. A founder called me last year of a really successful company. The kind of business that took him almost 20 years to build. He had customers, he had employees, and he had a reputation in the market. He had done the hard part, and he said to me, Michael, I think I'm ready. I want to sell this year. And I could hear it in his voice. He was super excited. He had finally made that decision. In his mind, the starting gun had already just gone off. But I had to tell him the truth. And the truth was this. The price he was going to get had mostly been decided already. Not by me, not by a buyer, and not by the market. But what had been done or failed to be done in the 24 months before he ever picked up the phone to call me. And there was a pause in the other line. Because nobody had told him that part. And that is a part that I want to talk to you about today. Most business owners think that the sale starts when they hire the investment banker. The sale starts years before that. It starts in the way you run the business, the way your numbers are kept, the way your team makes decisions, the way your customers are concentrated, the way the company performs when you're not in the room. By the time you say, I'm ready to sell, a lot of the game has already been played, and you're just finding out the score now. So today, I want to give you those 2 years back. If you are 1, 2, or even 3 years away from selling your business, this is the episode I wish every founder would hear before they ever decide to go to market. 6 moves, 6 things I would do at least 24 months before selling my business, because those 2 years can change everything. Let's get into it. Here's why this matters. When a buyer looks at your company, they're not just buying what happened last year. They're asking 2 very simple questions. Number 1, can the business keep running without the owner? And number 2, can I really trust these numbers? That's it. Simply safety and belief. If a buyer feels safe, they lean in. If they believe in the numbers, they pay for them. But if either of those 2 things feel shaky, they discount, they pull back, they get cautious, and in a transaction, caution is expensive. Take 2 businesses, same revenue, same profit, same industry. One sells for 6 times earnings. The other sells for 4. On paper, they look similar, but in real life, they're not the same business. One was prepared and one was not. And that gap is real money. If your business does $5 million of EBITDA, 1 turn of a multiple is $5 million. 1 turn alone. That's not a theory. That's not banker talk. That is a life-changing amount of money that can be won or lost based on the work you did before a buyer ever showed up. So here are the 6 moves. Move number 1, clean up your numbers. This is where it starts. Buyers discount what they cannot trust. And if your books are messy, they don't just question the books, they start questioning you. They start questioning the business and they start questioning the story. That may sound harsh, but it's the truth. So if you're 2 years out, get serious about your financials. Get on accrual accounting. Get reviewed or audited financials if it makes sense. Build 2 to 3 years of clean history. And start to really separate your personal spending from your business expenses. The car, the phone, the family member on payroll, the expenses that are really lifestyle expenses. But now look, I understand how business owners operate. Some of those add backs are very real, very legitimate, and some are completely normal. We can explain them. We can add them back. We can show the buyer what the true earnings power of the business is. But here's the difference. If the trail is clean, the buyer moves on. If the trail is sloppy, they start asking another question. What else am I missing here? And when that happens, the temperature changes. I've been in deals where clean financials did more selling than any pitch I could have ever made. The numbers created the confidence. And I've been in deals where messy books cost the seller real money. Not because the business was bad, but because the buyer got nervous. Clean books send a clear message to the buyer. It tells them that you are serious. It tells them that you run a real company. It tells them that the business has been built with discipline, and discipline gets paid for. Start there. Move number 2, make yourself removable. This is the big one. If I could sit down with every founder several years before they sell, this is a conversation I'd want to have. If the business cannot run without you, you do not own a business. You own a job. And buyers don't want to buy a job that depends entirely on the person who's about to leave. That may be uncomfortable to hear, but it's one of the most important truths in M&A. There's a point in the founder journey where being needed stops being a compliment. Early on, it feels good. Everybody comes to you. Every decision runs through you. Every customer wants you. Every employee feels like they really, really need you. You're the hero. And for a while, that's how the business survives. But eventually, the same thing that made you valuable starts making the company risky. Because if everything depends on you, then the buyer is not buying an engine. They're buying a person. And that person is not staying forever. So 2 years out, your job is to start removing yourself from the center of the business. Build a leadership layer. Develop a real number 2. Move key relationships to the team. Let other people make decisions. And let the business prove it can operate without you touching everything. Here's the exercise. Ask yourself this question. If I disappeared for 30 days, would it break? Be honest. Not what would be inconvenient. What would actually break? Customer relationships, pricing decisions, sales, operations, cash flow, hiring, whatever comes to mind, write it down. That list is your buyer's risk list. And your job over the next 24 months is to go fix it, one by one. The goal is simple. You want to walk into a sale as the owner of the business, not as the business itself. Move number 3, fix your concentration. Concentration scares buyers. It just does. One customer at 40% of revenue is not just a big customer, it's a risk. One supplier you can't replace is a risk. One salesperson who owns every major relationship is a risk. One product line that drives the entire company is a risk. And buyers price risk. They may still love the business, they may still make an offer, but they're going to build that risk into the number because they're thinking about what happens the day after they close. What if that customer leaves? What if the supplier changes terms? What if that key employee walks out? What if the whole thing is more fragile than it looked? That is what concentration does. It creates fragility, and fragile businesses get discounted. 2 years gives you time to fix it. Bring on the new accounts, diversify revenue, and strengthen supplier relationships. Document customer contracts. Move handshake deals into signed agreements. And while you're doing that, look at the quality of the revenue, because not all revenue is created equal. $1 of recurring contracted revenue is worth more than $1 of one-time revenue every single time. If you can shift even part of your business towards recurring relationships, contracts, renewals, or predictable revenue, do it before you go to market, not after. Preparation is not about making the company perfect. It's about reducing the reasons a buyer can say, I love it, but. Move number 4, lock in your people. A buyer is not just buying your financial statements. They're buying your people. They are buying the team that has to wake up the next morning and keep the business moving. And if they believe your best people might leave after closing, that concern shows up in the price. So 2 years out, you need to look around the room and ask, who can we not afford to lose? Who actually drives this place? And who owns the customer relationships? Who knows how the machine works? Who carries the culture? Who keeps the train running? Those are the people you need to understand. Are they happy? Are they paid correctly? Do they see a future here? Are they empowered? Are they tied to the business in a thoughtful way? Now, you don't have to tell your team you're thinking about selling. That's not the point. The point is to build a company that's not held together by uncertainty. You want a buyer to look at your team and feel calm. You want them to say, there's real depth here. There's leadership here. There's an organization here, because that matters. Because the stronger the team, the less dependent the business is on you. And the less dependent the business is on you, the more valuable it becomes. Move number 5, grow into the sale, not away from it. Buyers pay for the trend line. They care where the business has been, but they care even more about where it's going. 2 years of clean, steady growth heading into a sale creates confidence. It tells a buyer the business still has momentum. It tells them they're not buying something that's already peaked. And this is where some founders make a mistake. They know they're getting close to a sale, so they start trying to dress up the earnings. They start cutting marketing, they freeze hiring, they delay investments, they stop spending money on the things that actually create growth. And on paper, profit may look better for a minute, but the story gets weaker because a good buyer will see it. They will look at the numbers and say, why did marketing drop? Why did hiring stop? Why did growth slow down? What happens when we have to start investing again? Why did marketing drop? Why did hiring stop? Why did growth slow down? What happens when we have to start investing again? That's not what you want. You don't want to starve the business before you sell it. You want to keep building it. You want to run the company like you're going to own it for another 10 years. That's how you create a story that buyers believe. Because the best sale process is not built around desperation. It's built around momentum. You're not saying, I need to get out. You're saying, this business has a real future and someone can help take it even further. That's a very different conversation. Move number 6, get your house in order, your money, your taxes, and you. This is the one founders do not talk enough about. And candidly, it may be the most important one because selling your business is not just a business event. It's a life event. And if you wait until the letter of intent is signed to start planning your life, your taxes, your estate, and your identity, you're too late. Start with taxes. Real tax planning takes time. Estate planning takes time. Trusts take time. Gifting strategies take time. Entity structure matters. These are the moves that can save you real money at closing. And they usually need to be put in place years before a deal's even on the table. This is not something you do a week before closing. This is 2-year out work. Get your wealth advisor involved. Get your tax attorney involved. Get your estate attorney involved. Assemble your allies before you need them. Because I've seen founders lose more money from bad planning than a bad purchase price. And that is painful because it's avoidable. Then there's your number. Know what you actually need. Not the ego number, not the number you heard someone else got, not the number that sounds good at dinner, your number. The amount that allows you to walk away, take care of your family, craft a meaningful life, and never feel like you have to make another decision from fear. Know that number and run it with someone who actually knows what they're doing. And then have the conversation at home with your spouse, with your family, with the people who are actually going to have to live with that outcome. Because a sale brings everything to the surface: money, identity, lifestyle, purpose, fear, control, what comes next. And you don't want to be answering those questions for the first time while the buyer's waiting for a response. The emotional side of this is real, and I'm going to say that again. The emotional side of a transaction is real. I've watched founders get all the way to the finish line and then struggle, not because the deal was bad, because they had no idea who they were going to be after the business was gone. For 20 years, they were the company. They were the one everyone called. They were the one everyone needed. They were the one holding it all together. And then suddenly, they're staring at their life after the transaction. That's not small. So start that work now. quietly, honestly, with your spouse, with a mentor, and with the right advisors around the table. 2 years gives you plenty of time to prepare. 2 weeks does not. So those are the 6. Number 1, clean up your numbers. Number 2, make yourself removable. Number 3, fix your concentration. Number 4, lock in your people. Number 5, grow into the sale. And number 6, get your house in order. Your money, your taxes, your family, your head, your heart, all of it. Because this is not about getting a higher multiple. It's about being ready for the moment you've been building towards for 20, 30, or even 40 years. Now, here's what I want you to do. Do not treat the sale like some event in the future. Treat it like something you're starting to prepare for this week. Pick just one of the 6. The messy books, the fact that every decision still runs through you, the customer that makes up too much of your revenue, that key employee that you can't afford to lose, the growth story that's gone flat, the personal planning you keep putting off. Whatever made you wince when I was talking, that's your starting point, because the wince is the information. That's a place to go to work, because the founders who get the life-changing outcome are not always the ones with the best business. They're usually the ones who prepared early enough to let the best version of the business show up. That founder who called me last year, we didn't go to market the same year. We actually slowed down a bit. We did the work, cleaned up the books, built out the team, reduced customer concentration, and moved more responsibility away from him. We got the right advisors involved, and when we finally went to market, he got a number that was simply not available the first day he called me. Same founder, same business, different preparation, which led to a very different outcome. That's the lesson. The 2 years before you sell are the 2 years that pay you. So if you are anywhere near that window, do not wait until you feel ready. Ready is what these 2 years are for. I'm Michael Fischer. This is Going Beyond the Deal, and I'll see you next week. Let's continue to build something meaningful together.